they get too much. Myth was an outright lie. Let us read from the Holy Bible. Oh, by the way, if you have not read this book, by law, you aren't allowed to have a political opinion. Sorry, that's the rules. My copy is signed. Having generated public reaction and outrage from the subject of race-based privilege, Brash's staff found themselves being asked by journalists for evidence and examples of the supposed widespread abuses. You might imagine that the staff would be eager to hammer home the most powerful allegations in the speech. Instead, the internal communications show them urgently trying to bat the inquiries away. The power of the speech had come from emotional lever pulling and button pushing, not factual accuracy. As soon as the media started asking questions about the facts, the staff started dodging and ducking. So the question again, whānau. Why should someone who knowingly uses racist trash tactics for political gain be allowed public appointment? And while we're on it, can we all collectively gag on the irony of Don Brash investigating why New Zealand wages are so far behind Australia's, when it was the very hard right industrial legislation of the 90s, championed by Brash and his ilk, that forced down wages for short-term gain in the first place? What's the bet Don's report ignores that and instead favours the usual nonsense, crushing the unions, opening New Zealand resources for more overseas ownership and a return to legalising slavery? You'd think our mainstream media might be critical of this appointment, but Close Up were too busy covering a teenage girl model makeover, and Campbell Live were interviewing a fat man who lost weight by only dieting once every second day. Whānau, we've got to move on. It's important when announcing your plans to privatise public services to have a diversion that makes you look moderate. Cue the Business Roundtable's report on solo married mothers. Brothers and sisters, some say that listening to the corporate elite lecture the poor on how to live is like the Pope writing a sex advice column in Clio, but that's unfair. Apparently, married solo mothers are such a dire risk to Western civilization. They are weapons of mass destruction, swine flu, AIDS, Islamo-fascist terrorism, climate change and folic acid and bread all rolled into one. Extreme free market policies are the only cure. And I'm excitedly waiting for the Business Roundtable's next policy release, organ harvesting, how beneficiaries can give back to society. Hard on the heels of this assault on the DPB, Paula Bennett was slashing a training allowance for solo mothers that she herself had benefited from when she was a solo mum at uni. And that's because what's good for Paula is too good for you, loser! Enough of the news. Let's hand out this week's Wank of the Week. You know when Phil Goff is threatening to make a point the right don't want spoken, when the political pundit shrill pitch reaches levels. Goff's girth was what the mainstream chorused at Goff's point that middle-class New Zealanders were getting screwed by WINS benefits restrictions, which cancels a person's ability to get welfare if their spouse earns above a measly $534 per week. It's a pity that Phil waited until it was screwing the middle classes before commenting these restrictions have been burning the poor as long as Labour were in power. But the middle class poor are worthy and deserving, unlike the poor who need to get off their lazy bludger bums and get a job. Stupid Phil, what a dick. John Key was quick to point out that there weren't any pixies at the bottom of the garden printing money for New Zealanders to gain any level above subsistence living. Interestingly enough though, John Key's pixies did have enough to print all those tax cuts that benefited the rich earlier this year, and the pixies did have enough to print $35 million for the private education industry and another $35 million for military boot camps that don't work. John's pixies seem to have plenty of ink to print for those projects. Raising draconian WINS levels so that New Zealanders can afford to live, however, is a gaffety gaff. No more debate needed. You have to pretend extra hard not to listen when middle-class white folks scream. Finally this week, whānau, the Barack Obama People's Hero of the Week Award. This week, it goes to Barack Obama. It's hard being the first black president, isn't it? When a white cop can arrest a black professor in his own home after accidentally tripping the house alarm, even after the black professor shows the white cop he owns the house, You can't call that white police officer an idiot. You have to get chummy and invite them both over for a beer rather than vocalise outrage at such blatant institutionalised racism. Get up and get down. 911 is a joke in your town, may be true, but you sure as hell can't admit it, even if you're the President of the United States. There's a reason they call it the White House. That's it for the show, whānau. Don't forget the conversation continues at tumiki.blogspot.com. Good night, New Zealand. You stay classy, Aotearoa. Righto.